Okay. X'éig. So I had a request to talk about the classifier. So I think I'll do that, and I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. When I think of the classifier and when I teach about it, I would say this. Every single verb has a classifier. The classifier must appear directly before the verb root, and it cannot change groups. So the classifier is in 4 groups, so it must belong to one of those groups: 0, S, L, and SH. It cannot change groups without becoming a different verb. If it changes groups, it's a different verb. And so one of the things it can do within that group is to go plus I, and it will go plus I to mean either it happened, or it potentially will happen, or for one sort of particular verb, it happens on a regular basis. So those are your 3 reasons why it will go plus I, and those are the only 3 reasons. So if it is that way, I would expect it to be plus I. That's the sort of thing, like plus I is that way. It can also go plus D, and plus D most commonly is talking about middle voice. Middle voice means the subject is also the object. I saw myself, I talked to myself, I did something that affected myself, I got myself ready, those types of things. So a verb can move most commonly just from left to right. And the natural state of a classifier is 0, sa, sha, and sha, which is interesting because sa is a base of a neck, sha is a neck, sha is a head. That's kind of cool. They also are loosely associated with meaning. Zeros are the default classifier, by far the most common. S often is talking about putting things into some sort of category. L is often talking about something having a thing. So it has arms, or it has a nose, or it has clouds. And then SH is often talking about things that people kind of don't like or don't want. However, you can switch from 0 to either L or S to say it's not just happening, but somebody is doing the thing. So you could say Yak-A, it's good. Aushik-A, somebody improved it. Yanik, they are sick. Ausinik, somebody got them sick. They got them sick. So that's the short version of the classifier. So we can see it in action in sentences like this. So Kayaaní, I see a dog. That's all you're communicating is just some dog. I see some dog. But if it's a specific dog, we can switch it to the S classifier with iketli chwasatin. I saw your dog. So now this switches to S to say it's a specific thing, like irsatin. You are a specific thing. It could switch to an L with kate chashatin. I am watching the dog, either to see what it's going to do, or I'm taking care of it. Keshkuchatin. I am blind, I cannot see. So this is the same verb root changing the classifier. The classifier is the one thing that changes with these particular verbs. 0, S, L, SH. So we'll see the classifier a whole bunch in terms of how to use it. It also helps us to predict what the prefix is going to be of the verb. A very common pattern in Tlingit is you have 0 and everything else. That's the case here. Because if you look at like a perfective, so to say like they did it, you would have awa, ause, aushe, aushe. So these ones, when you switch it to a perfective, you're changing a single letter. And then the only thing that changes is the classifier. Ause, aushe, aushe. There's your 5-minute classifier. Back to Táax'aa. Who would like to read our next sentence?
Shakti, do yit ahwa agi ke sapani.
That needs to be that. Okay. And what do we have for translation? Yike Shakti.
Maybe good.
Or
it could be. I have it could be.
Yeah. Yike Shakti. Perhaps it's good.
A little bit more doubt than maybe, or
Gwash is more doubt than Shakti.
okay.
Now this is not a high-toned do yeet.
Oh,
Below him.
underneath them.
Yes. So do like that. At or arriving at below something. So at, below, them.
I looked forever for this verb here. I wasn't able to find it.
Ooh, it needs to be like this. I didn't catch
Oh,
it. Sorry. And
Build a fire.
yes. So we will find it. We'll go look in here, and we'll go up to ok. Scroll. Sorry. So it's usually you would have shoot out de uk, but there's something different about this verb because then we say do yid achwa agi. So what's happening here is we go oude ak, which I think we also had oude uk, and now we have awa ak. So the verb looks to me like it's changed in two ways. The classifier has changed. It's gone from a plus D to just a regular zero classifier. So it's D plus 0 to 0. And that's not necessarily making it a different verb, because it would have to change groups. So we can go plus D and still be the same verb. But what makes me think this is a different sort of thing is that this one is short and high, like a zero conjugation verb should be in the perfective, and this one's long and low. But I do think it's maybe this. Sorry, I'm going all over the place. Because you would have, in this case, you would have awa ak, or I ocked it, whatever, I built a fire under it. And maybe this is just a different verb because when you say shoot out the uk, like this verb most commonly is used, the shoot part is at the end of it. I make a fire at the end of it. And the reason I think for that is because it's like at the end of a stick. Like that's where you kind of start the fire. So coming back in, at below them, do yid achwa agi kechsagani. Perhaps it's good that I built a fire below them. Or I guess at below them, that I built a fire. And then we get kechsagani.
To burn him up, or he burns him up.
And then I think again we have that I burned it up. Okay. It's pretty unusual to see Like this is your main verb, and this is a subordinate and another subordinate. And we know that they are because you'd say kale sigan. I burned it up. Klesh kale sagan. I didn't burn it up. So when we have a subordinate, which is usually that or when, and again, you're tying two verbs together. So maybe, perhaps it's good that I built a fire under it and burned it up.
Ayach away shoot ataach ak clay a cut our hut we han cut our hut we kusaha kwan.
Okay. So when we say this ayach away, what does that say?
It is like,
That
or no, that's right.
Like that.
Or you can say, yeah, it's like it, I guess. And this should be low tone. Fixing a few things as we go. Ayach away. So ayach away is a little different than ayach away. And you got to get it from context. I don't think there's as deliberate a pause. They sound very similar if you hear them, I think. Ayach away is it's like that. So I guess I would say it's like that. Shoot at the arc.
He built a fire.
He is building a fire. Cut our hut.
Then drag them off.
Then he dragged it at the surface.
Dragged onto it.
On cut our hut.
That fire on that fire that they are dragged on. That
It's a
cannibal.
cannibal.
Okay. Anybody not read yet? Oh,
I haven't. Tlejas akitli a yetiwe awe. Tlesh adach yankach to the shark. To the shark.
sheesh. So we'll do this one section at a time because there's things that are kind of running into each other. So tlejas akitli.
Then just ashes.
Then
Just then.
it's
Just it's ashes.
ashes.
Is that the on the end? That
So it's the right here. It's ashes. So you could say akitli. And if you're alive, you're talking about your dandruff, which is interesting. Because you wouldn't say akitli because you would just be ashes. I guess unless you're a ghost. So, but we don't want to go there. Now this is the second thing. It's disconnected, even though they run right into each other.
I got when there were.
Yes.
I have question mark, something. It looks like a T verb, but there's no classifier, so I was confused, and then ends with was there.
Yeah. So, like, let's just unpack this thing a
And
little
just ashes are there from that is what I got.
bit. Okay. So we have a, whoops, how did that go? Hold on. Funky. A-Y-T. Okay, there it is. So here's A-Y-T. So we usually see this as A-Y-T, which is, how do we translate that?
There is.
Is that
There is.
close?
That's how it is.
No.
The place that it is.
Not quite. So it could also be this way. They're the same ways to write or say the same thing.
Oh,
A-Y-T.
it's like there it is.
It is there. It is there. So there's a couple things that happen here. So when you say, so is a non-human third person independent pronoun. It. That's really what it means, is it. And that's how you would say, like, at a place. So you could put on there, and sometimes can become ah. So it gobbles up that letter X, and it goes long. And it's not the only one that does this. You could say and you could say ka interchangeably. Okay? And you could say tu, and you could say tu. That one goes long in both cases. But so you say kuk, ka, ah. So when you say yeti, it is there. Tlingit loves to use this thing. Like if I say shqaqoyaya, you do a sa ka'ani. Yeti, right? It is there. And so I switch to this when I'm talking about it. So we also know that we can say yebuti. How's that different?
Was there?
Yeah.
And then you could say tlech ye wuti.
Wasn't there.
It was not there.
It wasn't there. So this is the mode that we know. We can sort of take this, again, like talking about pattern, not meaning, and we could say, oh, well, this is how you could do one of these things. You could say, tu yak ye wu. Oops. Twice. I'll just do wuti ye. Right? I feel good that it is there, or that it was there. Right? So this is what we call the subordinative form. It's linked to this other thing. The way it's a negative perfective, and we could take it and add the letter I to the end. And now we have turned it into the when or that mode, right? That kind of thing. You can also do this to an imperfective. But when you do this to an imperfective, it seems like instead of doing like this negative form, you switch the classifier minus I and then add an I at the end. Because you could say akhayati, and the negative of this is different. Anybody know? Ute. So ayeti would be that when it is there, as opposed to was. And like these are very gray areas for me in Tlingit. That's like, when do you use which one and why? But so coming back to what we have here in Táax'aa, just akikti ayeti awe, then just its ashes when it is there. So that's kind of like when we do it like word by word sort of translation. And if we want to retranslate that for our English brain, then when just the ashes were there, or are there, I guess, right? Because this is an imperfective right now. Tesh adag yan kak tudish to deshat. Anybody figure this one out?
He couldn't make up his mind.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's it. I
He
wrote
couldn't come to a conclusion.
I said he couldn't complete his thought, I think. That's what I said. No, he couldn't finish changing his mind. He couldn't, yeah.
Yeah, so to deshat. It's really interesting because what you have is you have the verb for grabbing something and holding something. So usually when you're using this verb, you're going to hear like aqa'awe to deshat, like a thought suddenly came, right? Oh yeah, this thing. Like it's in the story about Raven and King Salmon, where he talks the King Salmon into coming up on the beach. And then he's suddenly realized, or he said, I think he said it. He said, "Ha, khatu tashataya kandik kwakudi." I have suddenly realized I need to go to the bathroom. But he was really running up to the woods to get a club so he could kill that king salmon. So in this case, it's talking about like making up your mind. And then in front of it you have yan kach, which means truly. He just when it's ashes, like so when at that time, when just the ashes are there, he could not make up his mind because he also have a repetitive form. So when you have these repetitive forms, so it means like it happens on a regular basis. So you could say, you chayatunk, they are talking. You akanik, they tell about it. They're called the repetitive imperfective. It means it happens on a regular basis. There's this other mode where if you put kleich in front of it, you're saying it doesn't happen. So for example, you could say kleich achin yuch tunk. They don't talk to me. So in this case, he's not making up his mind, right? He is not making up his mind. He couldn't make up his mind.
So for Yankach, I had come to rest.
Oh, okay.
Hello, sweetie.
What was that? We have this in the dictionary.
Oh, I see.
Maybe I don't have this in it. Or is it spelled different? All right. Let's go look for it. Aqaqaqtushi. Yankoch. It's like I need to.
Is yan in there like to completion or something like that, relate to that?
You could say yan tu deshet. They have completely made up their mind. But you would say, I think in the negative you say tesh yande tu deshet, not yan kach. I got one other spot to check. I'm going to refresh my windows.
In the story, it's got an underlined X, not a.
Yeah, which makes me want to just listen to it, just to see. We're going to go back. Here's another, so we can also look in here. So this is in Lear's, it's a spreadsheet of nouns. So we'll go down to the Y's and see if he's got it. So he's got Yen Kuk. And now I'm very curious. So we have 8 minutes left, so I think I'm gonna find it.
But is there one with an underlined X that means something else?
I think you could say Yen Kach, which is on the shore. But I would say those are that would be two different words. It wouldn't be one word written together, which it certainly could be.
Are we supposed to be seeing what you're doing?
No, I was just opening the file. I had to find it.
Okay. Just checking.
Jeez. Okay, now let me find the spot. I'm gonna go to. Go ahead. I found it right away. Took me 2 tries. I think it's Yen. Because this would make a lot of sense to me. A dog and cook 2 dish. I mean, he talks, even though he's a very well-paced speaker in terms of like just making it manageable for us, like but sometimes he does get excited and goes pretty fast. I would say it's Yen Kuk. I could probably listen to it with headphones again and just try and see. There's some background noise of some kids yelling probably at a basketball game. It would make a lot of sense. Like he never truly made up his mind. Like, so that's what I would sort of say. If you say, catch a dog and cook to deshet. So there's a couple things that are affecting this. This making it negative, this being truly, and then this being a repetitive action. So it's like he never came to a conclusion. He never made up his mind. Let's get 2 more.
Wasage, X'éig, Wasane, Wekusakwan, Keshtige.
Okay, sheesh. So we do have a bit of a very similar line to this one up here. Waski gers sene getsu to nikde nakatneyetcha. Oh, the cha is like we usually translate that as you see. It puts emphasis onto something. Yikecha, it's good, you see. So here, what else could I do first? Could I also do, right, to these ashes, right? So we go, what more can I do to the cannibal's ashes, right?
Where does the else come in?
Say it again.
Where does the else come in? What else can I do?
Waski teke. I don't really see it. I would say, like the literal translation of this would be something like, what could I possibly do to these ashes? So you would have to have I would expect s right there to say what else. Waski tseketsuchsene. But I think we don't have that here because he's like, when you think about this story and when people have explained this story to me, they said he was so angry and nothing could satisfy his anger. Even though he killed it, even though he burned it all up, he's like saying, what do I do now? Like, I'm still so upset at this thing. Well, what on earth am I going to do to these ashes?
Didn't you say above that there was something that meant first? I thought it was eh.
Yeah. So it's like, I guess in this sort of context of the story, it's like, well, what am I going to do now? Kind of like he's just trying to find like some sort of, there's no satisfaction for him. And it's understandable. Like this thing just killed 2 of his brothers. Something like that. Because when you've got this ausene verb right here, like if you put an object in there, right? Like if I said, waski tse ge irsene, what might I do first to you? Right? So when you say, yechatisene, you did it to me, you did that to me. So that's what he's talking about, doing something to these ashes. One more, are we done? What's the wishes of the group?
Hooch.
I've heard a motion to adjourn. Motion carries. Gonna cheat.
Good cheese.
This is a deep story. There's a lot of stuff here. See you folks on Thursday. We'll keep working on Táax'aa. We're so close to the end. And then we'll also talk about our 10 sentences. And we'll also talk about Kusa Hakwan.
Nashish.